Greetings, cinephiles. Are you looking for a movie analysis podcast that stands above the rest? Then look no further than Collateral Cinema, the only movie podcast that matters.
We analyze good movies, we analyze bad movies, and yes, we also analyze the in-betweens of the world of cinema.
So if you like what you hear, find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever you get your podcasts.
And yes, my friends, we are 420 friendly. So when you listen to us, smoke it if you've got it. And now, here's a new episode of Collateral Gaming. The show starts right now.
I'm Ashley Chancellor.
And I'm Dan Rockwood.
And this is Collateral Gaming with
Victims and Villains.
Welcome to Collateral Gaming, the only video game podcast that matters, where we focus on good games, bad games, and everything else in between in the world of gaming. We are podcasting straight from somewhere in South Texas, and yes, my friends, we are a 420 friendly podcast, so whatever you have, smoke it if you've got it. Welcome back, Dan, and Happy New Year, man.
Happy New Year to you. Welcome to 2023. We're just a few days into it, but how's your year been going so far?
I don't know. I'm looking at your cat, bro.
Yeah, he is a cute cat, and I just fed him, but I already think that he wants more food already.
Yeah, no, my New Year's been great, and the end of the year was awesome, too. I mean, Christmas was fun. Got to see my little girl open some gifts, and I even got a Nintendo Switch gift card, bought myself Final Fantasy VIII and a collection of Street Fighter games, I believe, because we're going to be doing a arcade game mega review on fighters, so.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I actually had a great Christmas, had a great New Year. Did you get any games for Christmas, or what have you been playing lately?
Yeah, so I didn't get any games specifically. I'm kind of hard to shop for because I buy what I want, especially when it comes to games. So, people will get me gift cards or stuff like that, but I did end up being able to play a good amount of games over the few days that I had off around New Year's. And so this year has been hard with like beating games. I haven't finished very many games because I'm playing like JRPGs that just take so long and stuff like that. So New Year's Day, I did finally beat Pokemon Violet. And then almost immediately after that, I beat the Splatoon 3 campaign. So I've been doing some good stuff on my Switch, and then, still chipping away at God of War, still playing Persona 5 Royal. So that's kind of where I'm focusing a lot of my time now before we get into the 2023 releases, which Forspoken comes out like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks from now, and I'm going to be all over that. So yeah, time is the most valuable resource right now.
Hell yeah. Well, as for me, lately I have actually finished the main story of God of War Ragnarok. Zach actually beat the game 100% and sent me his platinum trophy today.
Damn, that's impressive.
By the way, obviously Zach and Megan are not on today. Just scheduling conflict after scheduling conflict, and we just decided, fuck it, we got to get this recorded. So, but we're here, and I did end up beating the main story for God of War Ragnarok. Got some loose ends to tie up. Obviously, I've been playing A Link Between Worlds. I even started A Link to the Past, and I got as far as beating the Swamp Palace again, which is as far as I got before. So,
Nice.
I think I'm now in the Skullwoods, and I've actually been enjoying that. I've been kind of comparing and contrasting because obviously, the world's very similar between, or the worlds, plural, are between both games. And let's see, played a little bit of Modern Warfare 2. I don't play a lot of first-person shooters or multiplayer games for that matter, but Megan had actually recommended Modern Warfare 2. We were thinking about doing maybe a bonus round episode on it, so I got it, played a little bit of that. I'm trash, but I got into some of the multiplayer lobbies, the campaign, did some Warzone 2.0, and that's been pretty fun. What else? Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion.
Mm-hmm.
We did an episode on that, so obviously I've been playing that. Played a little bit of FF7 Remake, even. And
Nice.
And
Final Fantasy is one of my biggest like gaming blind spots. It's just never a series that I picked up or really got into. I did demo a little bit of Crisis Core at New York Comic Con, and that was a lot of fun. So I feel like if I'm gonna pick up a game, that would probably be the one that I'll gravitate towards. So we'll see. But obviously, a lot of people love that series, and for good reason. So it seems cool.
so I'm like you. I had never really gotten into the Final Fantasy series. It was
Mhm.
another series that I had kind of a blind spot. No particular reason. I just never picked it up. Bo is really, really into Final Fantasy VII, and he likes a lot of the other games too. But I think that one in particular is like a big one for him. And having played both that and the remake, I can understand
Mhm.
why. It's easily made its way into my top 10, if not top 5 games. And if you like the like action RPG of Crisis Core, which is a spinoff, you might like Final Fantasy VII Remake because it's also a real-time action RPG, but they kind of blend it with some of the turn-based mechanics from the original. And they're both games are phenomenal. I highly recommend both the original and the remake.
That's awesome. And I do have the remake through PlayStation Plus. I think it was one of their games a while back. So
Uh-huh.
I own it. I have access to it. I just need to install it and find the time to play it at some point.
Yeah. But I think that's it. Pretty soon I think Zach and I are going to start playing It Takes Two so we can get ready for our next
Cool.
episode. And probably going to be playing.
I love It Takes Two. It's so good. Have you played it before? Or is this your first time?
I've never played it before, so I'm
Have a great
excited.
time. That game is made or break by the person you're playing with. So I hope Zach is a good partner for you in that regard. And you guys are able to work together. My wife and I played through it together last year, and it was just so much fun. And it brings together a lot of different like gaming genres, which is super cool. So it's honestly a really great game for people who don't typically play games because it gives them some really good introduction to like many different game types. So there's like some RPG elements, and there's some even like shooter elements and stuff like that. So it's such a great game with a cool story. And of course, the Game Awards, it won Game of the Year last year. So it's definitely critically acclaimed and well received in that regard too. But I love it, and I'm really excited for you to play and check it out.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really excited as well. Oh, and one more thing, I did also start playing the original Silent Hill. So that
That's something I gotta do. I want to play those original games so badly.
yeah, I had played through quite a bit of Silent Hill 2, but I had not played their first game, so I did actually pick that up just the other night and got lost into it. But I think that's all the games I've been playing lately. I don't really think there's any additional news we need to cover.
Not really. I just saw, so I have like zero information about it, but Sony just announced they're releasing an accessible, it looked like a controller, like an accessibility controller for people with disabilities to play. And that looks to be compatible with PlayStation VR. This is literally released on their blog like an hour ago, I think. So I don't have
Whoa.
a ton to talk about because I don't know that much about it. But more people being able to play games is always a good thing. So that's awesome, and I'm excited to see what that's going to be. And PlayStation VR 2 launches next month. I was super excited for it. The only reason I'm not getting it is because it literally costs more than my PlayStation 5, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I don't want
Oh,
to
yeah.
pay more for what, in my opinion, is a peripheral than I did for the console itself. So I'm going to wait for that price to come down and then pick it up when it's a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, no, fuck that. I understand.
Mhm.
Well, awesome. Well, I guess let's go ahead and let's get back into the worlds, plural, of The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, because, man, we covered the gameplay last time. I'd love to kind of get into the characters, the story, maybe the music, because I don't think we really talked about the soundtrack.
Absolutely. So this is really funny, and I've got kind of a summary of the game pulled up. But before I really go over that, so I played this game. We're coming up almost 10 years ago now is when I played through this game. So I have really fond memories of it, but I'm trying to think of the story. And you had just replayed it recently, so you're very familiar. But so if I'll tell you what I remember. I remember, and this is where when I'm trying to think about it, I'm remembering things, and then I was like, no, wait, that's Link's Awakening, which I played much more recently. But I know, you have Link and you have Hyrule and you have all the dungeons in Hyrule, but then you also have Lorule, which is, I believe it was the Dark World in Link to the Past, and so Lorule is that version of that. And you have to, Zelda is either kidnapped or locked in a painting or something along those lines, and you have to be able to save her. That's about the extent of what I remember from the story. So I'm excited because I feel like just talking about this and hearing you talk about it, we're going to unlock some of my own memories, and we'll see where this episode takes us.
Nice. Yeah, no, this definitely awakened a lot of my memories as well, because I mean, I think I had a broad idea of the story, but not too far. So, I mean, basically, this does take place some unspecified amount of time after A Link to the Past. Not too far in the future, because Hyrule still looks generally the same. I would say maybe only 100 years or so instead of hundreds of years.
Mm-hmm.
This is a new Link. The events of A Link to the Past are mentioned. And I believe retroactively we've established that both Link's Awakening, which is the direct sequel to A Link to the Past, and the Oracle games take place between these.
That makes sense. The Zelda timeline, I mean, it's so kind of convoluted on its own when you try to like piece the games together. But also, I like how you said, this maybe like 100 years past. I feel like there's no consistency in Zelda games with how long or before, each game is set. Because in some cases, it's like, 100 years since this previous game, this takes place. I think Wind Waker was on the timeline of like hundreds of years. As the world flooded and they were trying to wait for the hero to arrive. But then you get to Breath of the Wild, which I'm pretty sure references to like 10,000 years from when the ancient beasts, when they were like originally created. And it's just like, okay, how long? Like I almost feel like just a religious like zealot being like, the world isn't millions of years old, that's ridiculous, like dinosaurs never existed. But it's like, how old is Hyrule? Like, how many tens of thousands of years are we going back? That's a story that I want to know. Give me prehistoric Legend of Zelda. That's what I want to see.
You're right. Like, do like the Far Cry Primal of Zelda.
Yeah.
I mean,
or are we in prehistoric Zelda and what we want is future Zelda, which would also be super weird. I don't know. That series could go in so many different directions, and I'm just here for all of it. I love it.
Yeah, no, like, and specifically Breath of the Wild, I'm glad that you brought that up, because the implication with Breath of the Wild is actually really interesting. So it's been, like 10,000 years plus, right? Something like that. Tens of thousands of years since they had an ancient technological society. And that doesn't even account for all the time it took for the rest of the games in the timeline to develop futuristically, however many hundreds or thousands of years it took then, and then the time gap. So that was quite a bit of a shift, the way I see it. A Link Between Worlds is interesting because I think, like I said, it's a lot more connected to a previous game with its own incarnation of Link and Zelda and Ganon. So, well, I mean, it's the same Ganon, but you know what I mean. That's what I really like about it, is that it's one of the few Zelda games that actually shares the exact same world, and that's really interesting. I mean, I think we talked about it in part 1 about how you can kind of go through Hyrule, and it's basically the same thing with some minor adjustments here and there. Lorule even is very similar to the Dark World, although quite a bit more disconnected. And they did make some changes, like Turtle Rock is in the middle of the lake, and the ice ruins are up on top of Death Mountain, or the Lorule equivalent of it.
And so this game deals with really one of the like earliest iterations of a Legend of Zelda story, in that the Triforce is capable of granting wishes, right? I think that was in the original Zelda game. I think that was a concept of, if you can complete the Triforce, you'll have your wishes granted. And so this game heavily deals with that. The first Zelda game I ever played was Ocarina of Time, which that wasn't really a factor in that game. But it was nice having this game come out at the time that it did, kind of turning to some of those story elements and having the lore of the Triforce in there, because I felt like we had lost a little bit of that with some of the 3D ones. So this was definitely a throwback to some of the more classic titles, not just in the gameplay and the look, but also in some of the storytelling as well.
Yeah, no, this was 100%. I mean, I think this is like the first technically 3D 2.5D Zelda game that actually took place back on the Downfall timeline, which is really interesting. So there's a lot of callbacks, and I think modernizing certain aspects of it, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, they stick to the mechanics and items and whatnot that was seen in A Link to the Past. So they added a couple new ones like the Sand Rod and the Tornado Rod, but I mean, other than that, it very much feels like it's a part of that world, and I kind of like that. I feel like Nintendo has been sort of acknowledging the Downfall timeline more and more as of late. A lot of people think Breath of the Wild is on the Downfall timeline.
I think it definitely could be, and this is where I'm so curious about Tears of the Kingdom, because they've spent so long on this game, and the fact that it's coming out in less than 5 months, or just about 5 months, and we don't know all that much about it, is wild to me. I feel like most other titles will have gotten gameplay demos and things like that. So yeah, I don't know where this is going to fall or what's going to end up with it. But Nintendo, notoriously tight-lipped about just all of their games, whereas other companies love to talk about everything, and Nintendo just does not. They're like, yeah, go speculate. Just think about what you want, what you want this game to be about, and that's what it will be. And we're not going to give you anything official until like decades later when we release a book that you have to buy to read more about it.
Right. Exactly. And on the topic of the story, what I like about A Link Between Worlds is, despite the fact that it borrows so heavily from A Link to the Past, I feel like the story is pretty far removed from it, outside of the very basic plot, which is, okay, we're gonna go look for the seven sages, connects with the seven maidens. Other than that, it's pretty much kind of different. I mean, Link wakes up and actually goes, it's not raining. He doesn't go to Hyrule Castle to go rescue Zelda from prison. He goes and meets up with the blacksmith, and he's the blacksmith's apprentice. I think that was also in the Minish Cap, if I'm not mistaken. He also served that role.
I think you're right. Yeah, there at least was a blacksmith that you could go for certain assistance, but I think you're right. It had been a little while since I played Minish Cap, also a great Zelda game that I definitely highly recommend if people haven't checked that out. But yeah, this it's just such a cool opening and cool beginning, and the different characters that you meet, from the apprentice, you're apprenticing under the blacksmith. Is it Ravio is the salesperson who sets up shop in Link's house and kind of kicks him out and then makes you have to rent and buy all those items and stuff. Like, it feels different from where other Zelda games were more linear in nature. This has kind of a linear introduction, but then it opens up and allows you to kind of explore and do things however which way you would like to.
Yeah, I mean, starting off, whenever you the first dungeon is the Eastern Palace, you have to go there, but then after that, you get to decide whether you want to go to the Palace of the Winds or the or whatever it's called, and the Tower of Hera, and then once you get to the Dark World, it's the world's your oyster, and you could approach these in any order. Something I know we did mention in part 1, but that more open-ended nature of the game, I think, allowed for a different type of storytelling. I mean, I think one that was a little bit more character-driven, because what bits of the story we're getting with this more open-ended format is getting to see into the personalities of the seven sages. And while I don't think they're as well developed as some of the more well-known Zelda characters, I definitely think that they have a lot more personality and depth than the seven maidens did in A Link to the Past. I mean, each one kind of has their own distinct personality and background, and I even, this time around went out of my way to go inform all of the people that were related to the sages, or their family and friends that were worried about them. I went out of my way to go visit them and talk to them and let them know after I had rescued each one.
That's awesome. This is a game. I don't pull my 3DS out as often as I should, especially because there are just so many games I haven't experienced on it yet. But I love using my 3DS when I'm traveling or when I'm camping. And I feel like this would be just a really fun, cozy game to play for like a weekend of camping and just have available, and just go like explore these dungeons and save these different characters and go through all the trials that Link has to face in this game. I think that's really, really awesome. But what do you think of the villains in this game? Because those are like what I remember most vividly. And talking with like Yuga and facing off against the different antagonists in this game, like that is what it really has left a mark like all these years later.
Yes. Okay, so Yuga was a really interesting villain. Maybe a little bit Girahimi. Like, I can see a little bit of influence
Mm.
there. But I think, distinct enough to make an impression. So you have Yuga. Of course, Yuga isn't even the true antagonist. Yuga is actually, just following the machinations of Hilda. Princess Hilda is actually the mastermind. That's the big twist at the end, is that she's been pulling the strings, and Yuga was only following her orders. But I think both of them are really interesting as characters. I mean, they're going to be the characters that I think are a little bit more well developed than the sages were, along with Ravia, who we'll talk about here in a bit. But I actually really, really enjoyed not only getting to know this new antagonist that's not Ganon, and actually, spends more time as the antagonist than Ganon does. I mean, Ganon doesn't even actually have any lines in this, I believe. He just merges with Yuga, and then it's a combination of the two. And then, so I definitely think like giving Yuga that time to shine, and I mean, he even made it into Hyrule Warriors. His power set is pretty cool. He's a fun boss. Yeah, he was a lot of fun. And then I think the one that really impressed me was Hilda. Hilda was really cool because we get to see this like mirror version of Zelda that shares her altruism for her own country, her dedication to her people. Not a bad person, not a villainous person, but somebody that's been put into a desperate corner, has been forced into desperation, and is willing to do whatever it takes to protect her people. Somebody that I think Zelda at one point mentions she's not sure if she wouldn't do the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
or at least implies.
Yeah, I mean the concept of Hilda like ruling over Lorule and wanting to, restore her kingdom and just trying to do what she can. It I mean it is very reflective of Zelda, intentionally so. And so yeah, it's the concept of like, would someone do this if they were in the same position, but in the characters that we tend to root for, like Link, like Zelda. So I think that's what makes Hilda not necessarily, I would say, relatable, but it makes her understandable. Like I can appreciate the position that she is in, even as this villain. Ganon, historically, there isn't a whole lot of sympathy for him. He's I haven't really played a Zelda game where it like tries to get to like the sensitive center of Ganondorf, but this one, it definitely shows you more of how what like the motivations behind people are what matter, and it really shows that intentions are there, and there's going to be difficult situations, and it's not always black and white of this is your villain and they're evil. There's always going to be some nuance there, which I like that in games, because it's like no one, in reality, nobody is ever truly like good or evil. There's always a give and take for both. And so I just like when my video game characters showcase that a little bit, because that's what I find most relatable, when you see someone who is imperfect in some way and has those flaws kind of shining through, but most importantly when they're able to find redemption for them. Those are the stories that I like to be able to relate to. And any, especially like younger people, kids especially playing this game, I would like them to be able to, see and learn from that as well. And what is a Zelda game if not a learning experience? I mean, most of what I like take in life, I have learned from, if not Zelda, from some video game at one point or another.
Hell yeah. No, I agree. I enjoy that we actually have characters that are a little bit more three-dimensional. in this game. That's actually interesting because we talked about how this game is kind of three-dimensional in its gameplay, and some of the characters follow suit as well. And of course, we also have Ravio, the Larulian counterpart to Link, who has he's got like heroic intention, but not the courage that Link has, that defines Link as a character. He's, self-admittedly a coward, somebody that has to borrow the power of a hero. And I guess at some point he realized that his Hyrulean counterpart was who he was looking for, somebody that had the skill set and the courage to do what needed to be done. And ultimately, he's just kind of trying to save Hilda from a fate worse than what he thinks, is death. A fate worse than death, actually, because, her having to be responsible for the destruction of another world, of another kingdom. And ultimately, I mean, we know that these characters are good at heart because all it takes is a talk from him and she comes back to her senses and, feels regret. And it's one of those moments where it's like, man, if you had just asked for help, Link and Zelda would have helped you, which they do. At the end of the day, they use the Triforce, and we get to see one of the few instances in the game where we actually see a wish being made. I think Wind Waker and Skyward Sword are the only other notable instances I can think. And they wish for Lorel's Triforce to be restored because it was destroyed, and that's what caused Lorel's state to be where it's at.
Yeah, so I have a problem with this ending.
Okay.
And so just it's a game, it doesn't give you free will. Not that I would expect that from a Zelda game necessarily. But here's the thing, because it sets up, and from what I remember is you complete the Triforce and you're given a wish. And so immediately I start thinking as myself, I'm like, well, what do I want to wish for? I got to decide. And then another character, it might have been Zelda, she was like, oh, Link, I know what you want to wish for. Let's wish for their kingdom to be restored. And I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted to wish for. What do you mean? And so I feel like I got my wish robbed from me because that's not what I would have wished for. But it's a moment where the game takes that choice away from you and does it to complete the story. So that's my problem with the Link Between Worlds ending.
Yeah, I gotta say, none of the times we ever get the Triforce is there ever a choice presented, and maybe that's because like Zelda's not that type of game that has a kind of choice system like that. But I don't know. I feel like that would be a cool mechanic. Like maybe they're all like altruistic wishes, but you can kind of have a little bit of free will there. But I mean, I will say that it's a bit of a tearjerker. I think this time I did tear up a little bit seeing, because they don't just outright say it. They say, she's like, Link, I know what you like you said, I know what we want to wish for. Let's make the wish together. And then you see it happen, and you see Hilda and Ravio dejected, and then all of a sudden their Triforce just starts reforming, and it's like, whoa. And I actually kind of it actually kind of got to me a little bit this time. It hit me in the feels. I was like, oh, that's so nice. I mean, Link and Zelda are such altruistic people that it's like, I don't know, even if they had given you the choice, I feel like it would have been so out of character. Even though technically Link is supposed to be a link to the player and is supposed to represent the player somewhat, he always does have, I guess, a set of characteristics.
Yeah, I mean, he's always, first of all, make multiple endings be a possibility would be really funny for a Zelda game. Like, give me a dog ending, like I think it's Silent Hill that does that. Like, give me the weird endings. Give me one where you can just go join Ganon from day one. I'd be like, oh, okay, and the game just ends and Hyrule just like stays as a nightmare forever. But yeah, with Link being literally the link to the player, I mean, he's designed to not really have a personality, but at the same time, he does have a personality. We know he likes to sleep a lot. We know he really likes food. We know he likes to ride horses and is good with a bow and arrow. Like, there are things that can be inferred just based on the gameplay, and we see his facial expressions, and we can hear him scream when he falls from a far distance. And so there are so many little things that have like created this character of Link over time. And so yeah, I mean, he has countlessly gone through and gone on these adventures and have saved this kingdom and saved these people. Not to mention the number of side quests that Link will complete. I mean, Breath of the Wild, like he helps build a town. He tracks down people to build a new town that was not there before. So he has these at his core, this desire to be of assistance. And of course, Breath of the Wild has his backstory of literally being a knight and being a guardian of Zelda. So he has those, that in itself was a character choice. Before the player takes control of him, he had this life where he became a knight. In Skyward Sword, he was a knight in training. So there's just a lot of things that the development team has put in over the years to kind of give you an idea of who Link is as a character, even though he doesn't have dialogue and even though he's not necessarily meant to be the most expressive character, there's still things we can see. And that's why, yes, for this ending, it does make sense for Link and Zelda to make the choice that they make. I just want the choice to I want to be able to just make the wrong decision and let Zelda game end and give me the bad ending, and credits can roll and it can say you made a bad decision, please play again. That's what I would like.
And with the franchise, subverting conventions as of late and trying out new things, that might be a good idea, actually. Something experimental, like give you a little bit of choice there, even if it's just an ending choice. It's like, I could see that. I mean, it would be kind of cool to see that. And maybe you get a bad ending and it's an instant game over and it just reloads it and then you can just make the right choice again. But even that, I feel like would be kind of cool. It would be I think a lot of fans would enjoy that. So I could definitely see the merit of what you're saying. And with this game trying out so many new experimental things, it's almost something that you might even think of. So, not a bad idea. I
Absolutely.
Yeah, but
so.
Yeah.
I mean, this game, I feel like this game came along at an interesting time too. So it was released in 2013, right? It was around the time, not all that long after the Wii U was released, and the Switch came out in 2017. So this predates the Switch by about 4 years. But this was really one of the last major titles that I can remember of the 3DS era. There were some that came after that. I know we got some Pokemon games after the fact and other other games I'm sure people are going to at me at that I'm not referencing now. But I know the 3DS got other games. But for a main major or big Zelda release like this, it was really one of the final big titles of that console, at least for me. And with Nintendo, at that point, I think being all in on the Wii U was not quite considering bringing their console and handheld hybrid into existence. I do know around 2015 they were already starting to look at the Switch as something that they were developing. Reggie Fils-Aimé published a book earlier this year or last year at this point in 2022, and basically I believe when Satoru Iwata was in having his health issues and he passed away in 2015, Reggie went out to meet with him, and in the book he describes that he at the Nintendo Japan headquarters there was already prototypes there for the Switch, and that was as far back as 2015. So this game does not feel, in that sense, all that far removed from what the concept of the Nintendo Switch was, which is why, I love the 3D mechanics of the 3DS. If they were to add those to the Switch, I would not complain. I think they were really cool. But this would be a great game to bring to that platform. Re-release it, allow people to be able to play it and get it on Switch. It would just be a huge win for that console, I feel like, and would make sense to have.
you for bringing that up because I agree. This game does need to get ported over to Switch. And I was thinking it would actually work quite well. I don't know if I brought this up in the last part or not, but I could definitely. I was even kind of like thinking about the controls and how the additional buttons on the Switch could actually work, and if for once they actually wanted to implement the touchscreen of the Switch in game, they could even have the touch controls from the original game as an option still. The one major change I guess I would make is at least let you pause the game while you're putting pins on the map. But
that could be helpful.
Yeah, and also maybe like different types of pins, so you could actually put like the weapon or the item shapes or something, so you would know, okay, I need a bow for this, I need a bomb for this.
Yep.
I will say that those pins are definitely very useful, and playing a Link to the Past and not having those is so much harder. Or playing any older Zelda game, even like Hell Ocarina of Time, it's like you go and you see something, and you got to just visually, like mentally remember, okay, there's an item here, or there's something I can get here that I don't have the right equipment. So I'm really glad that A Link to the Past implemented that, and I'd love to see them kind of expand on that for those features a little bit. Modernize it a little bit, but I would love to see a Link Between Worlds come to Switch, and then I would love to also see a Link Between Worlds style remake of A Link to the Past brought to Switch, because that game is in desperate need of a remake.
Yeah, I think that is, well, I think the games that we are most likely, or maybe ones that I'm just hoping that get the remake treatment next, would be Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. I feel like
I agree 100%
for those games. So those are the ones that I think we would get next, and then potentially A Link to the Past. But Nintendo is almost always going to do the thing that you least expect them to do.
Right.
So we're going to get something that we're not going to be able to predict. But that and I think the whole idea, like, they remade Link's Awakening, right? And so that motivated me to go back and play the original on my Game Boy Advance SP, and then when the remake came out, I played through that as well. So I was able to play through it twice. And I think that if they were to do that with any of the other older Zelda titles, that would be beneficial, and people would be into that and would buy it and want to play it and check out those games. But yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the touchscreen on the Switch earlier, because I can't think of any game that really uses the touchscreen in any kind of meaningful way. Maybe there are some indie titles that rely on it more, but I just cannot. There's no point where I feel like I've used that touchscreen in any way.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because I understand that the games are kind of moving. They're moving away from that sort of that sort of gimmick, and they're kind of moving more towards just your traditional gamepad, and I get that, but put the option in there. I mean, allow us to use the touchscreen. I can even think of like Breath of the Wild. I think even the Wii U version of that game doesn't use the touchscreen.
Not at all. That's one of my biggest issues with Breath of the Wild, because I played through it completely on Wii U. I did not pick up a Switch at launch, and so they did not. They abandoned the development, not abandoned it, but they did not use the gamepad at all, to the point where it just kind of flashes. The screen flashes and just says, like, basically tap to play on the gamepad, or leave it alone to play it on the TV. And it's like, you could have put a map there, you could have had your weapon selection there. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff they could have done that they opted not to. And that was the last major game of the Wii U. And they didn't do the main feature that they had advertised the Wii U to have. They didn't do anything with it, which was pretty disappointing to me.
Yeah, and that may have had something to do with the fact that they were developing it for both systems. I wonder if that maybe had something to do with it, and it was just too much trouble to put the implementation in the Wii U version, but not the Switch version. But I agree with you. I actually started with the Switch version, had my Switch stolen. Yeah, because I actually bought a Switch for Breath of the Wild, because even though I had a Wii U, but I wanted to play it on the Switch. I wanted to take it with me on the go. I wanted the best experience. So I waited, and I didn't even get it at launch, but I got it. I got a Switch with the game as soon as I possibly could, and fell in love with it. And then my Switch got stolen, so I didn't have a Switch for a while. I later bought the game on Wii U. So I've experienced it both ways. And then I got a Switch again and re-downloaded the game. So
Well, that is good. I'm sorry to hear that it was stolen. That sucks. I don't like when bad people steal things. It's not good.
Yeah, and all my progress in Breath of the Wild was gone. I mean, I'd put
Oh no.
like 500 hours into the game or something crazy like that. Like no joke.
Wow.
And I hadn't done everything there was to do, but almost everything. I'd gotten all of the shrines, the main quest, every side quest, and I'd gotten half of the Korok scenes, enough to expand your inventory
Wow. Okay.
completely.
That's a
So,
lot.
and I lost all of that progress. I did all the DLC and everything. And
Hmm.
yeah, just to be disappointed and have to, but it's okay because it enabled me to start over the game a couple of times and, fall in love with it again. But yeah.
That's true, and that's a great game to just like play through multiple times, and do something a little different every time, and all that. So definitely, that's a bright side to it. But yeah, we had, I mean, the Switch, and I just read a report today, which I'll call it, generously call it a rumor, but it's like, oh, Tears of the Kingdom is the last like major Nintendo game in development for the Switch as of right now. So that either means that they're focusing on Tears of the Kingdom and there isn't another thing coming, although we are supposedly getting Pikmin 4 this year. Metroid Prime 4 will probably get in like 2030, who knows? But that will, those will come along. But I do think we are going to get some kind of successor to the Switch probably in the next couple of years. I don't know if it's going to have the Switch name or if they're going to change it up completely, but I do think the level of success they've had with the Switch, I don't think they're going to want to stray too far from that formula. So we'll see what Nintendo has. Like I said, everything they do is going to be unexpected. So they, might go back to like the Wii U 2 or something and just try to bring that back. Who knows what they're going to do?
Switch to Switch U. Yeah, it's interesting to think. I actually saw that bit of news too, where any plans that there might have been for that elusive Switch Pro that everyone's been wanting has been scrapped in favor of just developing a new console. And I actually think that's the right move. I would love to see Nintendo kind of stand up to competitors and have a next generation console that actually holds up to. At least at some level, to the specifications of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S, because there's a lot of opportunity there. I never expect Nintendo to be on par, but I feel like technically they're a couple of generations behind, honestly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean the Switch lags behind the PS4 in a lot of ways, and it came out many years after the PS4. What I have discovered that I want, and my cat is walking on me, but I can talk around him. Good job, Finn. What I want, and a lot of people are like, oh, it should do 4K. They could do stuff with ray tracing. Even high-end PCs struggle with that. When you enter the 4K realm, you can do it, but when it comes to stable frame rates and everything, it takes far more processing power than what I think we can currently get in the system. The PS5 and Xbox are able to do it, but even they need to do, dynamic scaling and things to make like 60 FPS work. A lot of the times, if you're doing native 4K, it's going to be 30. After playing Pokemon Violet, which was just such a cluster of glitchiness and bugginess, and I had a lot of fun with that game. I've put probably 30 hours or so into that game so far, but just looking around, like its low res textures, which just took me out of the game, and just the low frame rates, like Nintendo, give me a 1080p console at 60 FPS that is stable. And like, that's a huge win. That would be, to me, that would be Nintendo next gen if they were able to do that. And that's not that big of an ask, I don't think. But I still feel like it's going to take a little while for them to get there because it's just not a priority. But if they release, an update to the Switch or whatever, and they can run any first-party Nintendo game at 60 FPS at 1080, I would be so happy for that.
Yeah. No, honestly, that's the dream. I honestly really hope that Nintendo kind of gets... I feel like they're sort of on that trajectory, but yeah. And being able to, like, take the innovativeness that Nintendo has, the Zelda formula, and really make a game that holds up to modern standards. And Breath of the Wild gets damn close, don't get me wrong, but I mean, I mean, as far as like I think the graphics kind of the technologies that they use to bring the graphics to life. I think that the graphics actually do hold up to what
Oh
we
yeah.
see today. But imagine if they were utilizing the technologies that we have on the PS5, the Xbox Series X, and I mean that would be mind blowing. I mean, we've seen how many like Unreal remakes of Ocarina of Time and
Hmm.
like that. So I mean, just think, what could Nintendo do with their budget? Yeah, that it would be incredible. And I'd love to see a game like A Link Between Worlds with, you know, those kind of upscaled visuals and yeah, and whatnot, and even, you know, sounds. And that's not to say that this game doesn't look and sound great, because it does. I think for a 3DS, it's
Hmm.
definitely one of the better looking and better sounding 3DS titles.
I think so. And we talked a little bit about, I think you brought up the music and the audio design of this game. Like I mean, any Zelda soundtrack is going to have really great tracks, and it's going to have, you know, the iconic themes and stuff that you recognize. But I feel like the music in this game, especially for the different dungeons and the overworld and just all the places you explore, like the music is something that really sets itself apart from especially other games on the 3DS. It was just designed and orchestrated in such a way that really like added to the whole atmosphere of the game, and that was one of the things that was so cool about this title.
I'm so sad Zach and Megan are both not on this, because they're music nerds, and they always have something interesting to say about the soundtracks. But what I did really enjoy about this is that this is post Skyward Sword, so this is when they started actually using real instruments instead
Hmm.
of synthesized ones, and it really shows. I love hearing even some of the same tracks that we heard in A Link to the Past, just done with real instruments, done with sound technologies that bring them out to their fullest. You know, that trumpet or whatever that they have that you hear playing with the high roll and the low roll themes, just really brings it to the front. And it's like, and the low roll theme is the Dark World theme, right? It's the same thing, but it just sounds like how you would expect it to sound with today's technology and with real
Hmm.
instruments. And it's amazing. It's beautiful.
And one of the things that has always impressed me about Nintendo in general is their ability to do software compression on their games. I don't know what like the actual file size of A Link Between Worlds is, but I'm sure it's not very big because Breath of the Wild on Switch was not very big. It might be the digital version of Breath of the Wild might clock in at like 12 or 13 gigs. I don't have the size directly in front of me. But compare that to like God of War or a Call of Duty, which were, you know, going between 80 and 100 gigs. And it's like, how does Nintendo do this? How do they, you know, how do they get the compression down so well and make their games run well on their consoles? There's a part of me that would love to see Nintendo go become a software publisher and publish their games on PS5 and Xbox. And I feel like we might get better running Zeldas. But at the same time, the ability for them to compress and truly optimize and fine tune these games for the consoles that they create. I mean, no other company does that like Zelda. And I say that or like Nintendo. And I say that as like a huge Sony fan, a growing Xbox fan. But there's just something about Nintendo games that has always set itself apart, and that no other company is like. And I'm loving God of War Ragnarok. I'm having a great time. It does not emulate the same feeling I got from playing something like A Link Between Worlds, or like when I was playing Pikmin or any of the Metroid Prime games. There's just something uniquely Nintendo about those experiences, and that's why I'm excited for Nintendo to keep, you know, making more games and come out with more stuff. I want to see what they're doing next. So we'll hopefully have some good stuff to look forward to as we go through 2023.
Hell yes, brother. Well, I think that's a good note to sort of wrap things up here. I know you were not wanting to stay up too late, but any final thoughts on The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds?
This game is really awesome. I had mentioned on part one of this episode, this was the first like 2D Zelda game, even though it's a more like 2.5D type Zelda game that I had played. But I had so much fun with it. It's definitely a game that I want to revisit and play through. I am in the midst of moving right now, so once things calm down from that, I will be able to, you know, pick up some more games and really focus on that. But it's just so much fun. If you haven't played it yet and you're listening, definitely check it out. If you have a 3DS, you can pick up a second-hand copy somewhere. If you don't have a 3DS, consider picking one up. There's a lot of really cool games on there, and hopefully we'll see it come to Switch someday. And I would love that, and I would definitely pick it up and buy it again there and play it through there. So we'll see what the future of the series has to hold for sure. But yeah, man, I love this game, and thanks for having me on to talk about it. This has been really cool.
Yeah, thanks for being on, bro. Happy to have you on later this season and for future seasons as well. It's been a blast. As for my final thoughts, Linked Between Worlds, I think is one of the more overlooked Zelda titles. If you have a 3DS, I would definitely recommend checking this game out, whether you're a Zelda fan or even if this is the first Zelda game you'll play. It's actually a fantastic entry point. For a game that obviously borrows so heavily from A Link to the Past, I'm surprised at how much identity this game has on its own. I mean, going back to like the soundtracks, they even added one of the bangers, like one of the biggest bangers of the franchise with the Lowrel Castle theme. Is just so good, and the graphics, the switch between 2D and 3D, the more open-ended format that kind of paved the road for Breath of the Wild, and just trying different things out. I love when Nintendo experiments. It's like we know the Zelda formula, and that's still very much intact here, but let's play around with it a little bit. Let's tinker. And it makes me excited to see what Nintendo will do in the future with this franchise.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's only a matter of time. I mean, if we get something similar in this art style to A Link to the Past, or if we even get a sequel potentially to A Link Between Worlds or something, I mean, I feel like this is one of those Zelda titles that in 10 or 20 years, Nintendo will just pull it out of nowhere, and we'll be able to revisit this world again, whether that is in a remake or a re-release or just a game that is built off of the same ideas of it. I think it's definitely something where we have not seen the last of Link Between Worlds, so it's only a matter of time until we revisit it in some way.
So Nintendo, if you're listening, I know you're not, but if you are,
Yeah.
Remaster this game, port it to Switch, and remake A Link to the Past in this format, and also, like we mentioned earlier, remake the Oracle games Link's Awakening style.
Yep. Longtime fan of the show, Shigeru Miyamoto and Aonuma. They'll they take our suggestions seriously, so we know they'll be getting on that. As much to your surprise, this podcast actually gets translated to Japanese specifically for them, so that they can listen and take our suggestions. So we appreciate that. Much love to the Nintendo team over there.
Miyamoto-san, Aonuma-san, we have our deepest respect, or maybe I should say Sensei, Miyamoto Sensei. Sensei, because we definitely respect your work. Zelda is and always will be my favorite video game franchise. So I always get giddy when we're about to do another Zelda game. When I have an excuse to get back into Zelda, is always the best part, I think, of collateral gaming. It's ultimately what brings a lot of us together, even like we mentioned in the last episode, because everybody loves Zelda. And I'm looking forward to Tears from the Kingdom in May, and then we're going to be doing Zelda month again next season in December. So look forward to that. So, Dan, where can our listeners find you, and what's going on with Victims and Villains, with Tech Raptor?
Yeah, man. Wow. You're remembering and hitting all the stuff that I do. Thanks. I appreciate that. Well, if you want to follow me, I'm over on Twitter at drock64. I'm not as active as much now, but we'll probably get into that for however long there is a Twitter to be able to retweet and be on. But yeah, I am over also at techraptor.net writing, features, previews, reviews. One of the latest things I just posted was about Marvel's Midnight Suns, which I've been having a lot of fun with. And I'm taking a little bit of a break now for the month of January, but I'll be coming back in February with a whole bunch more stuff to write about, including some tangentially related Zelda type content as well. So if you're into that, you can check me out over there. And of course, I am here representing Victims and Villains, a podcast podcast where we look at everything from, movies, games. We talk about comics. We talk about all kinds of different stuff through the lens of mental health and helping to support mental health, particularly suicide awareness, and helping people who are just struggling with any kind of mental illness, whether that's depression, addiction, anxiety, or anyone who is struggling in any way. And a big goal over there is working to get resources into schools to help people get the mental health resources that they need. So it's a really great initiative over there. I'm really happy to have been able to have been a part of what they do. And I was just thinking, because I started my podcasting journey on a show called Pop Culture Explorers, which was is going to be almost 7 years ago. We started in 2016. Our first episode was actually reviewing Captain America Civil War, and we ended our show probably around 2018. But Captain Nostalgia kind of picked me up, and I was like, okay, can I just podcast with you guys now? And now I come over here on Collateral Gaming and I podcast with you. So I'm, someone who had a show no longer has a show, but has been adopted by these other podcasts. So I definitely appreciate you guys for having me on, because this is what I love to do, and it's been a really great time.
Hell yes, you're welcome on anytime, man. Especially when Zelda is concerned.
Oh yeah, yep. And I have a feeling I'm going to be on. There's a lot of really good stuff lined up for this year, and I'm going to want to talk about it. So I'm definitely looking forward to more episodes with all of us together.
Oh yeah. No. Last episode, I was listening back, and I couldn't stop smiling, man. The chemistry with all four of us, and we were just having a great time. So go check out part 1. If for some reason you're listening to part 2 and you didn't listen to part 1, because that was a really fun time. And go check out Victims and Villains. Go check out Dan's work with Tech Raptor. Go follow him on Twitter, and also go follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And go leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts if you feel inclined to do so, or feedback on your platform of choice. We also do have a Patreon where we have exclusive full-length video game commentaries, or Let's Play video game commentaries, I should say. And a lot of those include Zelda. So I think we have a Breath of the Wild series that I still haven't finished, that it's been a while since I've touched. And we did actually finish Link the Faces of Evil, so there's that. You can go check out our Zelda CDI misadventures. Oh man, that was early. That was back in season 1, but it's up there. I think it's the only Let's Play we ever actually finished.
I still want to experience those games, but as we discovered in episode 1, it's like thousands of dollars to find both the games and the console at this point.
Oh yeah, no, you have to emulate it. That's really the only way, unless you're I don't know, Elon Musk or something. Although I don't know,
the authentic experience.
He seems to be losing money. His stonks are going down. So
yeah, who knows what he's doing? That's a podcast for another day, where we just we analyze the slow decline of madness that Elon Musk is currently experiencing.
Alrighty, well, I think that's about it. Next time, or actually, in the month of January, real quick, we are going to be doing our anniversary special. So we're going to be doing something similar to what we did a few seasons ago, where we're going to do an arcade game mega review. I would love Bo and Robert to be on that, and hopefully Megan and Zach can join us as well. And this time we're gonna be getting into fighting games. Last time we did light gun shooters, and this was back in like season 2 or 3, I think. So it's gonna be fun, kind of going back to that, maybe hitting up the local arcade and just seeing what shenanigans we can get up to. And then our numbered episode next month is going to be It Takes Two. So I am excited about that. As we talked about it before, it's a game I haven't played before. Zach and I are going to be playing together, because I do believe that the game does in fact take 2.
It does, yeah. Famously, it cannot complete that game with just one. It will take 2.
So we'll check that out, and it will take 2 episodes. That's why we have a 2-part structure. So that's perfect. And then also we're going to be collaborating with Collateral Cinema, because we're doing a video game movie, Silent Hill. on Collateral Cinema. So on the bonus round this month, we're going to be talking about Silent Hill games. Namely, I believe the very first Silent Hill game, which is why I started playing it, and Silent Hill Homecoming. So we're doing the
Cool.
the dichotomy of Silent Hill, good and bad.
Perfect. Yeah, I believe it was 2005 the movie came out, and I want to go back and revisit that because I remember not hating it, and it didn't do very well, but I want to like revisit it and just critically look at that as an adult and be like, what was this movie doing? And what were they thinking when they made it? So I'll have to go back and revisit that. But yeah, Silent Hill is a series that I feel like I would really enjoy, and like growing up with Resident Evil, like I love those games. I just never really played Silent Hill, so I'm definitely going to play the 2 remake when that releases, and hopefully I'll play the original coming up at some point. Just going to make the time to do it.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, well, I think that's about it for tonight. That being said, I've been Ashley Chancellor.
And I've been Dan Rockwood.
This has been Collateral Gaming with Victims and Villains, and we are out. Hut, hut, yeah!
Ugh.
Collateral Gaming is a Collateral Media podcast. All music and game clips are owned by their respective creators and are used for educational purposes only. Please don't sue us. We're poor.